Hey, Azshara here, and it's time to embrace the madness of the old gods with the new Yogg-saron Mercenary. Really wanted to see if we could actually hit a critical mass of old god refresh abilities to actually get Y'Shaaraj's third ability and N'Zoth's third ability on turn 2. And it turns out with Yogg-saron, we finally have, which is actually pretty cool, though it does make it where you're not going to want to use Y'Shaaraj's first ability on turn 1. You're going to be wanting to use Strength of Y'Shaaraj instead. And there is also another warning that I need to give when it comes to a build like this. So if you're actually in a mirror match, because of how Yogg-saron's equipment is actually worded, it will actually make your abilities refresh or also, meaning you'll have the ability to use N'Zoth's first ability on turn 1, and so will they, though they probably won't want to do that. And you don't technically have to use the taunt up ability on Y'Shaaraj himself to actually get access to the third ability on him. Don't know if this is a bug or just a feature with the equipment of Yogg-saron, but who knows, it really just depends. And if this ever becomes really meta relevant, that is something that you actually need to know. But as it currently stands, this build is just a for fun build, and with that being said, it is actually a lot of fun. So let's get into the mercenary by mercenary breakdown. The first mercenary is N'Zoth, which we're using Eternal Torment, and for the most part you're going to be using Spawn of N'Zoth and Corrupted Viscera as his two abilities. Sometimes Gift of N'Zoth comes up, but most of the time it doesn't. Yogg-saron, we are using Awakening Roar, which is actually the best thing about Yogg-saron, because to my frustration, you can actually use Lunatic Gaze and it actually doesn't swap the speed of any abilities. I don't know if this is a bug or it's just a feature, but I guess it doesn't really matter. It does come up sometimes. But for the most part, for Yogg-saron, you're probably just going to be using Mind Yoggle and Lunatic Gaze. Sometimes Oh My Yogg actually comes up, but every time I've used it, I've actually just lost the game because of it, which is why I don't recommend actually using it. Though if you want to have a lot of fun, do so. The next mercenary on the team is Y'Shaaraj, who we are using Heart of Y'Shaaraj as his equipment, mainly due to the fact most times you're going to be using Strength of Y'Shaaraj or Rage Unbound on him, and not actually use Defile Attack at all within this build, though this could in theory come up after you use a Rage Unbound. In theory, Idol of Y'Shaaraj is also really good, especially in this comp, just because of the fact you could increase the attack of all your mercenaries by an extra 8, but since Y'Shaaraj is really the only way you're going to guarantee an attack, this isn't really that helpful most of the time. But it is something worth mentioning, especially because you could actually just test it out. The next mercenary on the team is Sinestra, who we are using as a unstoppable force, as she is still very hard for most people to actually kill, mainly switching between Mana Barrier and Twilight Extinction and having Mana Brooch as her equipment. Vol'jin is usually the fourth mercenary you put down. I don't know why I have him out of order here, but it is what it is. We're using him mainly for Ring of Haste because everything in this build is a Shadow Mercenary, and you are basically swapping between Curse of Weakness and Shadow Surge whenever humanly possible. Shadow Shock in theory could come up, but most of the time it doesn't. And finally, we are using Azshara as a way to actually increase our survivability by a little bit. And we are using Xylus as her equipment, and mainly you're going to be using her for Shifting Tides and Vainglorious Rebuke, though Mage Paramount can come up sometimes just to increase the amount of damage your N'Zoth's equipment will do per turn, or to make everything else on your team a lot more tanky. With that all being said, let's look at some games. Okay, so they are mainly casters, which doesn't actually give us too much information. Could be some type of Elise build. Most builds are nowadays, it seems. Okay, actually dragons. It's been a while since I've seen dragons. Or is it just arcane? Interesting that it's Blink Fox instead of Reno. We're just going to do our combo of summoning to add, using Mind Yoggle on Y'Shaaraj, and then using the taunt on Y'Shaaraj. Okay, they're going to mainly focus down Y'Shaaraj, which is perfectly fine. We do have Corrupted Viscera. We want to make sure we use this after we actually use the gain attack on everything else. We're going to try to focus down Blink Fox. We actually probably should have swapped the order there between Yogg-saron and N'Zoth, mainly because this does give access to Corrupted Viscera, and they do have token generating things here. Okay, they're going to use Buffet. They're going to use Rage Unbound. All going to go into the Blink box. I would have actually preferred this to be more evenly split. Sadly kill our minion before we get the Viscera off, and they killed the Azshara. And now we're going to put down Vol'jin. We should be able to kill Yulon here, and we can try to steal the ad, though I think if we try to steal it, because Corrupted Viscera was last, they're going to actually be able to prevent us, and that was a huge misplay here. We still do get the refresh rate on each of the Old God abilities still, though, so that's actually kind of decent. Yeah, they're going to kill the ad. We're going to use the Lunatic Gaze. Then Curse of Weakness, which will kill nothing. Gift of N'Zoth gets us nothing. And we now have to deal with whatever's on their bench plus whatever's on board. I'm assuming is probably going to be Arcane, so that means Tyrande might be the green. Okay, so it is. I'm going to try to steal that one. Now, I really want to use Oh My Yogg here, but at the same time, it's probably going to just lose us the game, so I don't want to do it. I'm going to rearrange Tyrande's abilities, hopefully. That doesn't always work for some stupid reason, but it is what it is. Okay, so we killed the Yulon, which was basically guaranteed there. The Tyrande being up still is going to be a little bit frustrating depending on what they actually use next. Okay, they did have the Vol'jin. Just gonna summon in our ad. I really want to use Oh My Yogg. Really bad idea to do it, but we're just gonna be smart about it. Every time I used it during testing, I lost the game because of it, which is why I'm always questioning if I should do it or not. Let's see what we get here. Oh shit, they're going to be able to get 2 of the Starfire Blessings, which is going to be very difficult to deal with. They have probably Millhouse on the bench, if I assume. Well, we can use Corrupted Viscera here, I think. That blows up everything. I'm going to try to heal Yogg, and then use Shadow Combo ability on N'Zoth, or Vol'jin. We're sadly going to be able to kill most of our board here, actually all of our board. Okay, now we have Sinestra and Azshara. The good news is we don't actually have the 2 Starfire Blessings on them anymore, which means we're in a much easier position. Just going to use Mage Paramount here to try to give us a little bit more survivability. Okay, so we're gonna try to keep our Sinestra alive as long as humanly possible, and we should be able to actually just win this turn. Okay, that's going to bounce. Luckily, it doesn't do enough damage, and we win. Okay, so time for a game against mainly fighters, which actually makes me think it's going to be Elise build. Okay, so it is Elise, and it looks like it's going to be big bench Elise. A little bit more annoying to deal with than some of the other ones, but it does mean they're going to get the Golden Monkey a little less consistent than some other builds. Okay, so we're just going to put up the taunt. We're going to use their ability. We're going to hit into the Elise, which is exactly where we want to hit. We're going to attack into the Azshara. Then here we can just do the normal turn 2 combo. Honestly speaking, I probably should have swapped the order of N'Zoth and Y'Shaarj on the board, just because of the fact that it would make it a lot easier to actually make sure I did everything in the correct order here, but oh well. Okay, they're going to use Dinner Time. We're going to use our Rage Unbound. That's going to hit into that, and then we get the Lease, and we almost get the Tyrion, and we do with the Corrupted Viscera. And now they just have the bench to put down. The other Yogg build that I really wanted to try out would be something with Leroy Jenkins, just as a way to control state a bunch, but didn't actually end up doing it. I can't remember why. Maybe I'll do that next week, have a more control style, similar to what the build is against us right now, except instead of Sky Admiral, we're using Yogg. I'm going to try to focus down the Leroy Jenkins here, though. They're probably going to be able to get their ability off before we can do anything to the Leroy Jenkins, but since we do have a lot of attack, it does make Leroy Jenkins a lot worse here. Okay, so they are going to use Leroy Jenkins. That will actually kill their Leroy. Does kill our 2 Mercenaries too. And we do lose Yogg there. We do have the 3 bench though, so we're actually in a pretty good position. I think guarantee we do lose Sinestra next turn though, even if we try to play this really defensively. I'm gonna go for Maiev first, just because maybe if we can get that off the board before she hits too much into Sinestra, we can keep her alive. I mean, we don't technically need to keep her alive. She does have a huge target on her back, so just going to use the mana barrier. That doesn't do anything because they still die there. Kill the Maiev, and I think they're going to give up here. Yep. Okay, time for an even split. Oh, not an even split. Mostly casters. Well, we're just going to put down our normal 3 anyways. Let's see what this actually is. Okay. Oh, Trigor. We actually don't have a bad matchup here. We can use Gift of N'Zoth, Mine Yoggle, and then use Strength of Y'Shaarj. That should prevent anything of ours being killed here. The one downside of building this team like this instead of cutting the N'Zoth in the starting lineup and going for Vol'jin is the fact that we won't be able to mess with the Trigor. Because in theory, you could make Backlash always be slower than anything else that you have. Which is really funny in theory, it just isn't something I really wanted to test out. Okay, so that's going to hit Trigor, exactly what we wanted. That isn't what we wanted though. Okay, so Y'Shaarj is real low. We can use the first ability on Y'Shaarj, or on Yogg-saron, then use another minion generating ability on N'Zoth, and then hopefully Y'Shaarj actually sticks around for long enough for her to actually get his ability off. I think we're going to be lucky because nothing here matters too much. Okay. The next turn we should be able to use N'Zoth's 3rd ability. Putting down Vol'jin is probably the best option here. Then we have what? 49 damage with N'Zoth, not counting the 8 damage at the start of the turn. Then we'll use Mine Yoggle to try to swap the speed on the Vol'jin. That kills the Diablo. And we do get the Vol'jin, and we should just win from this position. Okay, so it's an even split this time. Just going to put down our normal 3. Okay, so they're Frost. Part of me kind of wanted to just focus down the local R, but I think this is probably the better idea. Because there's only one ability here that actually would trigger local R's equipment. We're going to focus down Azshara. That has a speed of 6, so we don't actually have what we want. We're just going to attack into the local lore. Hopefully we actually survive so Azshara can get his ability off, but you never know. And local lore should actually only do 3 damage to everything here. Oh, I guess 6 damage because of Jaina. Or 9 because of Yogg-saron. But they're actually not using his second ability. That's kind of strange. We do pop the barrier on Jaina, which is pretty good. Azshara is only at 1 HP. Well, can use Corrupted Viscera, Lunatic Gaze, and then probably just put up the taunt to be safe slash refresh everything else's abilities by a little bit. That does kill 2 of their minions. Azshara dies anyways. So we only have, I'm assuming, what is Diablo and Belinda on the bench. Oh, Sinestra. Well, we're just gonna use Spawn of N'Zoth. Use Oh My Yogg. No. Using Oh My Yogg is too big of a risk. Especially with a Sinestra on the board. In theory, it could just use Sinestra's second ability, which technically doesn't do much, but in theory could do a lot. Okay, that's going to go there. Only lose Yogg there. Have our Sinestra of our own that we can put down. Okay, so we use Spawn of N'Zoth again, try to focus down their Sinestra, then use Shadow Surge. Okay, so that kills the Cain. And then we just need to kill Sinestra, and they actually attacked with Sinestra. That just loses them the game. Well, we'll put down Azshara, and then we should just win here. Okay, so it's an even split. Doesn't give us too much information. Oh, pirates. Not something I expected. Just gonna do our normal starting combo. Was actually kind of tempted to kill the Edwin here, just to get rid of the speed advantage that they'll probably have. Okay, there's strength of Azshara. They're going to attack into Azshara, which is perfectly fine. Give us a bunch of attack, why don't you? Always gotta love it. Okay, Azshara isn't dead yet. So we're in a really good position because we can just use his last ability. Though it really actually depends. Oh, I guess it shouldn't depend too much. Just gonna summon our ad and attack into Hooktusk. I remember me included thinking Hooktusk would be the most broken thing in the world. Sadly, she wasn't. Okay, they killed the Azshara, but it's too late. And then we have a bunch of things with a bunch of attack. Too bad we couldn't actually kill the Edwin there because only one tick of our equipment would have actually killed it and then allowed us to finish them off next turn, but oh well. Okay, Smite and Vanessa. Just going to use his last ability, and then probably Lunatic Gaze. Should nuke everything on the board here. Then, given this position, I would just give up if I was them. Okay, now that we're through the games, let's discuss my final thoughts of the build. Overall, this build actually performed decent, but it isn't a build that I can easily recommend unless you actually really want to use all 3 old gods in the same team. It has a lot of flavor going for it, though it isn't the easiest build in the world to actually pilot, which is the main reason why I don't want to recommend something like this. The other thing is, I really wanted to try out Idol of Azshara, but for some reason I just decided against it as I got content with the amount of damage that I was gaining off of part of Yogg-saron instead, which isn't actually fully maxed out for me. And honestly, this was really fun to play. It just probably isn't the strongest build in the world. And like always, if you enjoyed the video, please leave a like, comment, and subscribe. And until next time, bye bye.